Welcome back. I am here with a doctor, Dr. Stanley Waspin from the Hoag Medical Group. Thank you for being with us today, doctor.
Thank you for having me.
You're the guy we should be talking to because you're going to tell us about travel medicine, about seeing a doctor before you travel overseas or before you do any extensive travel.
Yes, travel medicine is largely a preventive medicine effort where we first look at the patient, their overall health, and their immunization status. Are they up to date on their routine vaccines, flu shot, tetanus, etc.? And then we look at their travel plans, where they're going, how long they'll be there, the nature of their travel. Are they going to be roughing it, or are they going to stay at a 5-star hotel? And then based on these travel plans and the individual patient's situation, we sort of assess the overall risks.
Yes.
And then do everything we can to mitigate these risks, whether it's infectious disease or in-flight risks or something related to altitudes, for example.
Oh my goodness. Well, I do know that even sometimes when you do travel, your travel management company will alert you to the fact, if you're going, you should see a doctor first, make sure you're up to date on all of the immunizations that you may need. But what are some of the most common preventable diseases when you travel?
Well, even apart from diseases, one thing people should be aware of that for international travelers, the #1 cause of death is actually car accidents, followed by murders and suicide and drowning. So people have to be really careful, and we really discourage people from driving at night. But in terms of infectious diseases, the most common infection would be traveler's diarrhea.
Oh,
and it's typically bacterial. It affects around half of all travelers. And it's usually a self-limited, mild illness for most people.
But not fun.
No, not fun at all. And then there's other things such as, there's a variety of illnesses that travelers face that are transmitted in a variety of ways. There's respiratory illnesses like measles that one can contract aboard a plane. And there's meningitis, which is especially common in what's called the meningitis belt in sub-Saharan Africa.
My goodness. Wow.
There's hepatitis A, which is fecal oral contamination. You drink it or eat it, like typhoid fever. And then there's malaria. Malaria is a terrible disease, and there's a lot of it in the world. It affects hundreds of millions of people, and hundreds of thousands of people will die from it every year. Now, malaria is preventable with malaria pills and the proper protections against bug bites, mosquito bites.
Yes.
But still, around 2,000 Americans every year return from a place where they have malaria. They contract malaria. 2,000? A little less than 2,000 Americans every year return with malaria.
You would not even imagine that would be the number.
No, you wouldn't. But we have to remember that outside the United States, especially in poorer countries, infectious diseases are a lot more common. For example, hepatitis B, which is an infection that requires a blood contact. It affects hundreds of millions of people, and around 1 million people a year die from hepatitis B every year. It's a shame because it's an illness which is totally preventable with an immunization.
Well, it sounds like an advanced preparation when you travel is the best mode of the way to go. So how far in advance should someone come to see a doctor before they plan their trip?
Well, at least a month in advance is a good idea.
1 month?
Yes, most immunizations take 10 days or a couple weeks before you develop good antibody protection.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And then sometimes you'll need to take a variety of immunizations depending on where you're going to go. So a travel doctor, of course, like you said, will listen to the nature of the travel, whether you're going to stay at a 5-star hotel like I would, where you're going to rough it. So you would take a look at all of these circumstances, whether someone's going to just visit family in another country, and take a look at the kind of activities they'll be doing, and then you're able to devise a travel plan for them, a medical plan for them that will really work.
Yes, and when you mentioned going to visit family, it brings to mind one issue, one population that often neglects to see a doctor for a travel consult, and that's Americans who are returning to their country of origin to visit friends and relatives. They just assume that they're going to be fine, and they are disproportionately affected with infectious disease.
That is such a statistic to think, I'm just going home. I'm just returning to a place I've lived and I've been fine, but being in America for a time and then going back to visit family or friends in a country of origin really does leave you open to risk.
Yes, we get spoiled in this country, don't we?
We do get spoiled. It's true. But this is the season. So many people have their travel plans set in place and they're ready to go, but may not have included this as a part of their travel precaution.
That's right. And there are a lot of precautions that one can take that are going to be really helpful. People worry about, am I going to develop a blood clot in my leg just from a long flight?
True.
And that really is a risk, especially for people who are smokers or obese or people who have chronic illnesses like cancer. And there are a few things you can do to really decrease that risk. Moving your legs, stretching your legs, drinking lots of water, wearing below the knee compression stockings, and trying to get an aisle seat on your plane so that it makes it easy to get up and walk about frequently during those long flights.
That's a wonderful tip to learn. Are there other travel tips that maybe you could share with us today?
Well, jet lag.
Yes.
That's a problem that can really be mitigated if you drink lots of water and you avoid alcohol and avoid large meals.
And
I'm
what do
sorry.
they serve you on the plane? Don't they come by and say, would you like a drink? Would you like a drink? And so this is probably not the best idea for those long flights.
Well, everything in moderation, right?
I guess so.
Also, if you're traveling in a westerly direction, try to go to bed a couple hours later during the week before travel.
Oh.
And conversely, if you're traveling in an easterly direction, which is always more difficult for us, try going to bed a couple hours earlier in the week before travel.
And train yourself and get ready.
Train yourself and get ready.
Those are very good travel tips. So we know that we can see you at the Hoag Medical Group and that you can help us prepare for this kind of travel. But I'll tell you what, folks, if you're traveling this summer, you might want to make your appointment now to make it into that 1 month window before you go back to visit friends and family and take these wonderful cruises and trips east or west of our country. So Dr. Stanley Wasman, thank you so much for being with us today and helping us learn a little bit more about how we can be healthier and happier when we travel.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. And come back and visit us after this message. We will be hearing from Jennifer Carmarker. She's going to tell us all about our Globe headline news. Stay with us after this.